If you're watching this channel, it's because you don't enjoy watching the world squander what Christendom built, but you want to do your part. And chances are you've heard me mention a great means by doing just that. Email made by and for Catholics. Check out fidei.email. That's FIDEI.email. Built for Catholic individuals, families, organizations, and groups. They're private, secure, and of course, they're Catholic. And they're offering 2 months off on your first year for an annual subscription if you enter the coupon code Return to Tradition without spaces. That's the name of this channel, without spaces, at checkout. Well, most of us were wrong, folks. Most of us thought that Francis wouldn't respond to the dubia. That new dubia that everybody by now knows about, that Cardinal Burke and 4 other cardinals issued in response to 5 points of interest in the Synod on Synodality. If you're not familiar with it, well, I've got a video yesterday on that, well, a live stream. You should go check that out. I read everything Burke wrote and on it, and it's rather flabbergasting. See, we were wrong. We didn't think they'd get a response, but they did, and they got it really quickly. Francis issued a response to the most salient point, really. His responses to all 5 of their points, the initial responses that Burke and company didn't think were clear enough, they got reposted on by Cardinal Burke and elsewhere. You can go read those if you want. They are pretty ambiguous on most things. But the key takeaway here is that Francis has endorsed the James Martin sin. Now, he hasn't endorsed the sin itself, the act that cries out to heaven for vengeance, according to sacred scripture. He hasn't endorsed that act, but he has endorsed the church blessing pairings of people who engage in those things. As long as the church doesn't endorse the sin itself or doesn't say that what they are engaged in is the same thing as holy matrimony. A few months ago, Francis said the church can't endorse sin. I don't know how that's not what we're doing here now, but that's what we're doing here now, is the church is endorsing sin. Or at least the ape of the church is. Welcome to the ape of the church. Let's go over this story here, which comes to us from, where else but America Magazine. And they provide this fantastic headline: Pope Francis expresses openness to James Martin blessings in response to cardinal critics. This happened on Monday, October 2nd, 2023, a day that will live in infamy in the history of the church, folks. You can believe that. The usual suspects are celebrating this, of course. The secular world is celebrating this, of course. I've already seen several headlines talking about this being a landmark moment in the history of Catholicism and all sorts of other silliness. All I can say is I would like to be around when a future pontificate clears all this up for us. And I really want to have most of the people who blindly followed this Pied Piper in white in Rome as he led souls off a cliff. I want to see their reaction when this gets all cleared up, because it is going to be cleared up, folks. This will be cleared up. From the article, quote, "The Catholic Church, in pursuit of pastoral prudence, should discern if there are ways of giving blessings to James Martin types that do not alter the Church's teaching on holy matrimony," Francis said. Writing in response to a dubia letter delivered to him by 5 cardinals seeking clarification on doctrinal questions, the Pope addressed issues surrounding the authority of the Synod, women's ordination, and blessing James Martin pairings in a letter made public October 2nd. End quote. And it goes on here. He goes on in that to give a fairly orthodox definition of marriage, one that conforms to common sense, really. And he says the things that all human beings all throughout history would have agreed on. And he, has a Catholic moment when he says that. But it doesn't stop there. Because as you just heard in that preceding quote, he can't just stop there. He goes on and tells us that we have to, in mercy and kindness and all the rest of it, really broaden our view. Quote, "Pastoral charity also is necessary in defense of the objective truth as not the only expression of that charity, which is also made up of kindness, patience, understanding, tenderness, encouragement," he added. "For that reason, pastoral prudence must adequately discern if there are forms of blessing solicited by one or various persons that don't transmit a mistaken concept of holy matrimony." He added that decisions made in specific circumstances should not necessarily become a norm regulated by a diocese or bishop's conference, noting that the life of the church runs through many channels in addition to regulatory frameworks. His responses came in response to a dubia letter dated July 10th seeking clarification on doctrinal questions written by 5 retired cardinals. U.S. Cardinal Raymond L. Burke, German Cardinal Walter Brandmüller, Mexican Cardinals Juan Sandoval Iniguez, and Guinean Cardinal Robert Serra, and, of course, Cardinal Joseph Zen. The Pope's response is dated July 11th, but it was made public on the website of the Dicastery of the Doctrine of the Faith only October 2nd after the Cardinals released a follow-up letter. They had given the Pope a second letter August 21st with rephrased questions to solicit yes or no answers, but did not receive a response from the Pope. Given the gravity of the matter of the dubia, especially in view of the imminent session of the Synod of Bishops, we judge it our duty to inform you, the faithful, so that you may not be subject to confusion, error, and discouragement, the Cardinals wrote in an open letter explaining the decision to make the document public, October 2nd. End quote. Okay, so the response was, of course, handled by Victor Manuel Fernandez, the new prefect for the Dicastery for the Doctrine, Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith. I wish he hadn't changed the name of it. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue anymore. But this response was, of course, predates him. It was mostly penned by Cardinal Ladaria, but it is signed by the prefect when it is made public, and so that's how you get Cardinal Fernandez signing this thing. Not that he doesn't endorse it, of course. He himself hinted at, that the Church can take a different view than it has before. Now, and then, of course, Francis publicly has said this, too, recently. So I have to ask you, what are you going to do about this? The one thing you cannot do, because I know a lot of people are going to be tempted, now that the Church can apparently bless these things, and it's really amazing. He says there shouldn't be a hard and fast rule. He says that even dioceses shouldn't govern this. Well, I guarantee you, there are going to be priests trying to offer these blessings, and they're in some dioceses, and their bishops are going to crack down. They're going to come down like the wrath of God when they try this. God bless those bishops in advance for having the courage to do that. But Francis says there shouldn't be a hard and fast rule for anybody. So what are you going to do? You see, here, I know what the temptation will be for some. There will be some who will leave for evangelical Protestantism because despite all their theological heresies that they embrace, they have at least one thing going for them, usually moral clarity. That's why they earn the ire of the general public as much as traditionalists are these days. Others will leave for Eastern Orthodoxy despite their own heresies and their own schismatic tendencies ad infinitum. I would suggest that if you are watching this wondering what you're going to do, find a traditional parish. If you've been on the fence about making the long drive, this might be the time to get off the fence, especially if you are kind of sweating it out in a parish that is, maybe your family's got long roots in, but you've got a priest there who is less than Orthodox. And especially if you're in a kind of community where you really fully expect that these kind of blessings might happen in your parish, it might be the time to make the long trek every Sunday, like my family does. We drive about 90 miles each way to get to Mass on Sunday. It might be time. If you've been on the fence about the SSPX, I, at this point, would really strongly encourage you, as I often do, to tune out the people telling you that they're the evil people, that they're evil. They got their problems, but they are defending orthodoxy at least, so this might be the time. And I would also suggest, folks, that if you have been wrestling with habitual sins or maybe lax on your resistance to these things, this is the time to get right with God on those things. Get those sins under control now. Because I will remind you, these sins that the Church is now apparently going to be blessing caused God to remove 2 cities from the face of the earth in the Old Testament. Something to ruminate on, I think. What do you expect to come from this? Do you expect your diocese? Do you expect, I don't know if you live in Chicago, Cardinal Supich to suddenly offer pastoral guidelines on this sin, on how to take care of it, how to make people feel welcome and all that nonsense in the Church? What do you expect is going to come from the Synod? I've got 2 videos made for that were supposed to, lead up to the Synod. They'll be out during the Synod at this point. But do you think you're going to see chaos at the Synod now? I mean, you're going to have better bishops participating who are not going to put up with this stuff. I'm waiting to see what Cardinal Mueller has to say. He's invited as a participant in the synod, as a representative of the more conservative faction in the church. What's he going to say? Do you think the dubia cardinals are going to get a response? Do you think they're going to issue another response from this? I hope so. I hope Bishop Schneider speaks. I fully expect Archbishop Vigano to speak. I have something from him, by the way, probably for this Sunday. He had a message on a holiday, on a feast day recently that didn't get any press whatsoever. So I'm going to present it to you on Sunday, maybe in lieu of a live stream that night. I don't know yet. But for now, let me know what you think in the comments about Francis giving an ambiguous but clear, also paradoxically, response. The church can bless the relationships, as long as we don't confuse them with matrimony. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. And like and subscribe if you haven't, it does help. So to sharing this on social media, that helps enormously. As always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.